Hello and welcome to the Witch Source. I am back with Adam and we are heading on to our next topic and we are discussing the magic circle. And I do want to just say up front, I have been sick for 2 weeks. So yes, there is a lag in recordings. That is completely my fault. I am still recovering. So if I suddenly go silent, I am probably coughing. But we will work through it. So that is that. Anyway, so the magic circle. I will start with you, Adam. What are your thoughts on the magic circle?
Okay, so my thoughts on the magic circle. Um, I think it comes in real handy to put it bluntly. But at the same time, like the question has been posed: do we need to use it in
Yes,
everything that we do?
that is a common question that I get is like, is it necessary? Like,
Yeah,
is it necessary to use it? Do you have to use it? Do you have to use it for like big things? Do you have to use it for little things? Like, yeah, is it necessary? Do we need to use it? Yep, definitely a big question.
yeah. And when I get that question, it's for me, it's usually the response of like, "Do you feel like you need it?" And
To answer a question with a question.
yeah, it's one of those things of for me, it's always been up to interpretation on whether or not we need it. Is it a great thing to use in everything that we do? Absolutely, I think it is, but I don't think we always need to actually go through the motions of casting a circle and, you know, basically getting into the ritualistic mindset of, working our craft in that moment. You know, if it's something simple, if it's, I just really want to put this energy out there and kind of will this into being, then yeah, I really don't see the need of like, okay, let me set everything up and let me cast this circle. But at the same time, like if you're doing your rituals, yes, like it is a ritual for a reason. Follow the process, cast that circle. Um, but overall, like you leave it up to interpretation per person, in my personal opinion. We're going to throw this back over to you, Raven.
Okay, so let's see. It's been what, like maybe 2 years, maybe longer, um, since I have talked about this topic. And it was only very briefly mentioned, I think, in another episode. Um, and at the time, my opinion on the circle was, um, yeah, if you feel you need it, use it. But it's not important. It's not necessary. Like if you want to do your charms, if you want to do your spells, if you want to do whatever, just do it. Like it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big production, right? But in that time, I have gone through more formal training and have gotten a very different perspective on what the magic circle is and why we need it. So, my opinion very much used to be that of nonchalantness, and now that has very much changed. But I like one thing that you pointed out was you used the term when referring to the magic circle of going through the ritualistic mindset.
Yes.
And that is the basis of the circle, right? Like that is important. And I feel like that is the key to performing really powerful magic. Um, is getting into that ritualistic mindset. And because the process of going through the ritual is empowering yourself, setting that tone, getting in touch with the energies, and shifting from where we live in the mundane
Mhm.
and shifting gears into intentionally moving into that magical space. Um, and now I kind of look at doing things outside of a magical circle. I really would compare that to doing magic when you're mad.
Okay. I mean, I can definitely see that. Um, because like when you act out of emotion, it's you're not gonna get the results you want. Like,
Exactly.
and so yeah, like the ritualistic mindset that I mentioned is one of those things like I guess I'm trying to find the best way to describe what I mean because
Your definition.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um well, the first thing that we have to ask in this instance before I can really get into the definition of ritualistic mindset is what is a magic circle in and of itself? Is it something that has to be cast? Do you have to go through the physical motions of casting this circle, drawing it out, or in certain meditative states, we can actually envision pillars of light and so on and so forth that surround us? And can that actually be our magic circle then? Um, if if you believe that the magic circle is something that has to be cast, then you get this idea that this is big, huge ordeal,
Mhm.
a big to do thing.
Right.
And whenever it's something as simple as like a freezer spell, do we really want to go through and cast a circle while just doing something as simple as a freezer spell?
Right.
Or, or on the flip side, is me putting myself in this pillar of light after I've ground connected and centered? I've surrounded myself by this pillar of light. Is that casting a circle? Because that'll also actually change the way I look at things as well.
Mhm.
Um, but
Sure.
the ritualistic mindset would be actually going through the motions of setting everything up and drawing your circle, casting your circle, and because it is very, very, very different when you actually go through the motions to do it versus visualizing it. And it brings two different aspects to the magic circle in and of itself. Though in my research, it's technically the same thing.
So, okay, there's a couple different schools of thought on this from what I have found. Um, you have some practitioners that believe absolutely every time you must be in a magical circle. But to your point, they do not define what the magic circle is.
Hmm.
Then there are others that say, no, you don't have to be in a magical circle every time. But if you actually want to create change, be powerful, have support and assistance with what you're doing, you do a magical circle. So, going back to what is the magical circle, right? So, obviously, I can't give away too much, but I can say that when you make it a practice to go through casting a circle or drawing a circle or calling a circle, um, or weaving a circle, because there are different methods, there are different ways to do it. I think what the majority of people are used to hearing is casting a circle.
Yeah.
And that's what's talked about in books, probably the most. But there are many different ways to do a magical circle. And the basis behind, the intention behind, maybe I should say, um, is to create a sacred space that is clear of all potential energies that may be around or lingering or could interfere or meddle in whatever it is that you're doing, because there are energies, entities, beings, astral things all around us all the time.
Yeah. So sorry, I got I had a wonderful question that just kind of popped into my head,
Okay.
and I don't want to really interrupt you.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm gonna type it out real quick and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. One of the main intentions is first to clear the space and create a sacred space from which you're working. Um, the next intention would be to clear yourself and shift yourself into that magical space, which is really basically the connecting, grounding, centering, and shifting yourself, your mind, from the mundane to the magical. So that would be the second intention of the circle. The third phase would be essentially creating the sacred container from which you're working. So like you mentioned, the pillars of light, creating that circle around you. But really what we need to think of, instead of it thinking of it as a circle, we're thinking of it as a container. I know in some of the readings and research that I did as a solitary, so I'm safe to say, a lot of people refer to it as the cone of power.
yes.
So you are essentially creating this container, which is a cone of energy, that you are creating a boundary in which things cannot come in or go out without your permission. And
Right.
you are connecting with, intentionally connecting with whatever deity, source, God, goddess, what have you. And you are filling yourself in that space and that container with that energy. So I think another thing to remember when you are going through casting a circle or calling a circle, um, you're not just using your energy. Where when you are working your simple charms or your spells or your freezer spells, right? You're essentially just using your energy and whatever you have at hand, right? So with a freezer spell, you got a piece of paper, a pen, a container, and some water. Like, you are relying on those energetics and your energy to cast a spell. Where when you are in that circle, you're not using your energy. You're using part of your energy, you're using your intention, but you're calling on and relying on something else, which is where you get the extra boost, the extra power, the extra force. And typically, you're also going to call in some other supporting energies into the space to also support. So whether that's your elements, elementals, what have you, right? For some people, it could be ancestors, if that's their thing, right? But you've created this container in which you can safely work without any outside influence. You've pulled in these energies. You've put your mind in a space that is no longer mundane, and you're hopefully in a clearer mind and have a very clear intention of what you're doing. and why you're doing it, and you're open to receive guidance of if you need to change, if you need to switch something up, if you need to go a different direction. Um, you're open to that guidance because you've opened that channel. And it's a very clear channel because you've cleared out all any interfering gunk or junk. And then from there, you can work whatever it is you need to work. And then you close or clear or open the circle in which you are essentially asking those energies to go work on your behalf. Again, not using your own energy.
Right.
So that's where I say, for the biggest part, in a nutshell, without going too in depth, I think it is important to do a circle every time now. I mean, obviously, if you're in a pinch and you feel like you can't go through the process, fine. But that touches on another point that you brought up as well. So, but before we go there, what is the question?
Okay. So, and you actually led up perfectly to this because the clear senses. We naturally have abilities that we call clear senses, and sometimes, you know, they just happen. We it just hits us out of nowhere. But
Right.
there are people that tap into their clear senses when they want to.
Mm, right.
So the question is,
They can turn it on and off at will.
yeah, the question is, should I be in a circle when I'm using my clear senses? Because out of a technicality, with one of the things that you said, you're
Okay.
not using just your energies in that sense.
Correct.
So to me, it makes me think, yes, cast that circle because it's not just your energies, and that will actually allow you to tap into exactly what it is you're wanting to tap into. So, say you work in a field where you use your clear senses. Um,
Absolutely. Which a lot of people do, knowingly and unknowingly.
yeah, then cast your circle because um, oh, what is it when remote viewing? I think
Mm,
is what it was. Um, in a sense, when you're doing the remote viewing thing, if you cast a circle and you call on that additional help and you block out everything else that you don't want to come in theory, you should actually have a clearer, stronger connection to what it is that you're wanting if guided that way.
yeah, definitely. I would completely agree with all of that. Yes. I think when you are intentionally using those clairs, if you are somebody that can turn them on and off at will, especially if you are somebody who is afraid of your clear senses, afraid of your gifts, afraid of who's coming through or what's coming through, definitely cast that circle because exactly you are connecting, you are creating that safe space, that container, which cannot be um, penetrated unless you give permission. Um, and you can connect with exactly what it is you want to connect with. And you're clearing out everything else and anything else that could be interfering. Um,
It,
and
the reason it came up is because, I spent a lot of time working on understanding the clair senses better so that I could potentially turn them on and off. Um, and again, that drop in just hit me. Hey, you need to ask this question.
yeah, definitely. I think it
Uh,
would very much enhance what you're doing. I also think it would make it so much easier to access and develop those clear senses if you are doing them within the container circle, because you're going to have your guides. You can call your guides in, your personal guides that can help you with your clear senses. And you're going to tone out and clear out anything that could interfere or try to inhibit your abilities or scare you away from your abilities. Most definitely, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. No, it just like it came to me and I was like, "Oh, this is what I've been doing wrong." Um, because
Yeah.
again, I just
Well, I'll
I
give an example. So, like, I've been doing readings a very long time.
mhm,
And when I got the call to start doing readings online, which many people know, I did that for almost every day, Monday through Friday, for about a year straight. Um, to just anybody, free, random, come in, get a reading. And I really was pushed by spirit, goddess, God, whatever term you want to use, um, to do that. But I was also clearly told when I start doing that, that before I begin every session, I am meant to ground, connect, center, and then create a container around myself. And I never thought about it as casting a circle at the time because it wasn't something that, again, I thought was very important, especially as a solitary practitioner. Um, but I was guided to essentially do that without even understanding why. But spirit was protecting me in a way before I went onto this portal, which is the internet, and started interacting with all these beings all over the world. Another thing I would do, which if you go and look at any of the readings, which are pretty sure are still all over YouTube, between every reading, I pause and I would reinforce that circle, that container, that protection. And I would ask that I connect with the divine and receive the highest and best message intended for that individual, so that I wasn't getting just anybody or anything or any message showing up. And I would ask that again between every single individual before I started every single individual reading. So I would pause multiple times throughout that hour, sometimes 2 hours, um, before I would read the next person. I still do that to this day. It's a practice that when I started doing it then, it just stuck with me. So now when I have people come into the shop and they want to get a reading, I do the same thing. Um, but my gifts have developed more because, again, the more you use them, the better you get at it, the stronger they get, and the more other gifts start to show up. So now when I'm in the shop and I do that same process before I begin a reading, the number of people, I say people, the number of spirits that enter the space sometimes is overwhelming, because I call in, I protect the space, but then I call in not just my side, but I call in their side, you
mhm.
know, to be able to provide the highest and best reading for them, and to provide all the information that they need to know or hear at that time. And so I have guides show up, I have ancestors show up, I have people who have crossed over show up. And sometimes the entire shop is filled with all these beings and all this energy that has shown up to be present for or give their input on this reading. Um, so that has been a very interesting shift from where I started reading people, because before, I just was reading for friends and family. I mean, for years. And I never did any of that. I never like grounded, centered, connected, or did you know, any kind of protection or anything. It was just like, hey, come in, get a reading, whatever. And um, I just always trusted that everything would be okay, which, I mean, for the most part, it was. but the readings definitely shifted when I started following that process that I was led to do.
Yeah, so I also do private readings for people. It's a no charge kind of thing. It's friends and family,
Right.
and I ground connect and center, but I've never really, you know, put myself in that container. I've
Right.
never, I've never, I, I've never even done the pillar of light that I talk about. Um, to make it, it's just basically like, okay, let me ground connect center real quick. Boom, here I am, and I'm just hearing the cards.
Right.
So I've not even called in, their side.
Right.
I've just been like, hey, divine, show me what I need to know, and like move me through this. And just the thought of doing it that way is like, oh, I've been told I'm accurate, but oh, I'm
Well,
gonna scare somebody.
well, that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, I can be, I've always been incredibly accurate. That's why people keep coming back and I keep doing it. But everything shifted the moment I started doing that because not only am I being divinely led by spirit, I've got all of this person's support team now behind them. Like, I just got chills thinking about this.
Yeah, so did I.
uh, like covered in chills when I think about all of this person's support team is now here. They are showing up, and the person can almost feel that energy shift, and they feel that love, and they feel that support, and it opens them so they're more available to hear the information that needs to come through. And I'm guided that because sometimes spirit is harsh and very direct with no
Yes.
apology. Like spirit will hand you your ass and be like, get the fuck over it. Here's your ass on a plate. Deal with it. We've told you, we've told you, we've told you. Don't come back until you've done it. Like literally, I've had readings go that way. But when the support team is in place, it's more like they'll say, okay, yeah, they're not getting it, or they're not going to be receptive to that. Try it this way. Word it this way. Present it this way. Give this example, or call out this moment when this happened in their lives. That will get them. Like
Yeah.
it just, they're so much more open and receptive, and things click faster. The aha moments happen faster. Everything turns on, and it's like it's just it's totally different. Like now, like you said, there's one thing to be accurate. I've been accurate before. It's different to blow people away because they're like, you just told me literally every question I could have asked that I didn't ask, told me everything I needed to know that I didn't even need to know. And I feel confident that I can now go make this happen. Well, of course you feel confident you can go make it happen. Your whole support team is here backing you. Like
Yeah.
it definitely takes everything to a whole nother level. So yeah, definitely give it a try. Um,
Oh, I am now.
the other thing to remember too, though, when you call all that in, you have to release it, right? Just like when you cast, call, weave, whatever, do a circle, you must close, clear, or open that circle. And you must send those energies away, because if you don't, those energies will linger. And what happens is your circle will then slowly break apart a little bit at a time. As that happens, the energy leaks, your energy leaks. Then you have all the astral nasties seeing all this hyped up energy that's just kind of floating around up for grabs. And you bring in a whole bunch of mess, and you attract a whole bunch of mess that you're not ready for. You don't want to deal with. Like you're going to be like, I thought I did some really powerful stuff here. Why is everything going super haywire and terrible? And why do I feel terrible?
Because
You
you did some really powerful stuff here,
know,
but you
right.
forgot one thing.
Exactly, exactly. So that's the other thing I would warn. If you don't feel confident in closing, clearing, um, opening that circle and that energy, um, if you don't feel confident in doing that, then don't cast your circle. Don't call that energy in because you're not going to be happy with the results. Um, there's a reason you want to do things within a circle, but at the same time, you have to be responsible with that power and that energy that you're given. And part of that is properly closing everything down and sending it on its way. Um, another thing is energies don't like to be trapped.
Okay.
So if you are keeping them trapped and you're not releasing them out to do what you ask them to do, um, you're not releasing them to go be free, to be who and what they are. And most of them will willingly assist you because you've asked them and you've done it in a respectful manner. But if you keep those energies trapped, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah. But that actually also leads me to another question. And this kind of goes back into the basics here. Um, you know, after meditating and so on and so forth, once you've started feeling your connection to energy, do you do you think it would be a good idea to actually practice casting, weaving, whatever, calling on your circle and just sitting in the circle to allow the energy to flow, and then after sitting in it, doing your meditation in that circle, closing, just for the practice of calling on it and then closing your circle, opening it up. Because I was again just thinking about it because, as I've stated before, I think about everything. Um, and I think it would be really good, but at the same time, like, I remember the first time that I ever was in a cast circle and the surge that came with it, I was not prepared for.
Right,
Um, but I was also in a circle that was cast by a group of
right,
us.
right.
Um, so I'm curious, would it have been better for me to, you know, do my
Prepare
own circle
essentially.
first? Yeah,
Right.
practice,
So
prepare.
I would say absolutely, definitely. And that's what I've been doing. I do practice circles. I think the more you do it, the more muscle memory you have, the faster you become at it, and it's less work. It's less of a performance. It's less of a ritual, um, because it becomes second nature. When you have your process, how you do it, memorized, and you can do it just like some people, it takes 20 minutes to cast a circle. And not gonna lie, when I first started learning and doing, I would say at least that, if not more. Um, part of that is I have to learn, like doing my own is one thing, but being that I am now a part of a group, I have to learn their traditional way of doing it. And so, most definitely, there's been that learning curve.
Yeah.
So, it's taken longer. I would say the first time that I went through practicing, um, I would say it took a good 40 minutes for me to go through the entire motion of this new circle that I was learning. But I will tell you, I didn't really have a true intention of spell work that I wanted to do. It literally was, I want to try this out. I'm going to practice this new circle that I've been given that I have to memorize. And the first time I did it, um, I was pretty blown away with it. The other thing too is when there's a power in creating your own circle, most definitely. Um, because it's yours, right? It's got your energy, it's got your um, just the fabric of this is completely yours and it's individualized to you, and you're familiar with the energies, and you'll feel the shift in the energies as you go through this process. So definitely it's very important to create your own, have your own process of doing a circle. Um, and again, like you said, just sitting and meditating in that circle, because you can get so much information just from that, especially if you go into it with an open mind, an open heart, and just the clear intention of, I'm wanting to experience this. I want to experience the energy of this. Um, and I want to discover what I can learn from this, right? If you go into it with that, you're going to have a incredible experience. Um, and that's what I had historically, just doing my own. But when I did this one, which is one that has been used, I don't know how many years, 70 plus years that this process has probably been performed by people all over the world. Um, I would say it was definitely intense. It was not something I was used to. And this was just me alone. This was not in a group. Um, and
Well,
I was
that
surprised by the energies that showed up. And they had a lot to say. A lot to
Well,
say.
see, one of the things that I was actually thinking about is like when you use a method that has been there for years upon years, you're not just using your energy anymore, which is what automatically makes it stronger, makes it more powerful. And then you think about the fact of what a magic circle is, and it is a place for all that knowledge, all that energy to be confined and block out what's not supposed to be there. When you're using your own, you connect with the divine source, whatever, um, and you get information that way. But when you use somebody else's, whether it's a clan or, some other covens, very specific way of doing it that has been done for how many ever years, you're not just getting you and the divine anymore. Now you're getting everybody who has ever cast that specific circle, anyone who has ever been inside that circle coming back.
Yes.
And now their knowledge is there and ready to help you. Their energy is there ready to help you. And
Yeah.
that just makes it that much better.
That gave me chills too when you said that. Um, yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I don't know. I would have to ask exactly how old that this particular casting is. Because I know that the clan can date itself back into the 1800s or further. Um, so like it's an old clan. It's an old energy, because essentially, even if this particular weaving of it is new, it called upon the prior energies, just in the fact that it's been handed down, and there's an ancestry there with it as well. And maintaining that and calling that in every single time that has been done. And so me repeating that process, yes, there was a lot of energy. There was a lot of I could feel it. It was like I've done circles on my own, and I've done circles with other people, um, of my own creation, right? And had other people present for that. And you could feel it. I mean, but this was like so much more than that. It was like mine amplified. Uh,
Well, it also goes back to the concept that I had earlier of, is like my pillar of light. Because my pillar of light is essentially, in its own definition, a magic circle because it's cylindrical in nature. But when I visualize it, it is me. Everything around me is black. and then I am within this cylinder that reaches far above me and far below me to
Mhm.
keep me grounded and connected while
Yes.
I am where it centers.
Right.
And so, it keeps out all that negative, nasty stuff that I don't want coming in on me
Right.
and only pulls in what I want. But again, it's a visualization. And when you visualize, it's great. You feel it working.
Hmm. Yeah.
When you go through the motions of actually casting that circle, even just drawing that circle out in some manner, physically doing it, you feel a stronger reaction to having done it.
Most definitely. I would look at it this way, like you I feel like you can most definitely cast um a circle in your mind through your visualization, through your energy. Um and and have that be etherically um legit, and especially have it be a part of what's going on in the astral as well. I feel like you can do that. And I feel like that's valid, and you can have an experience with that most certainly. Um, as long as you're going through those basic steps of you're clearing the space around you, then you're dropping this container and you're calling in what you're asking for. Um, but I would agree, when you do it physically, there's a huge difference and a huge shift and change in the energy. And it's because you're doing it in the physical that you're adding that other layer. So you're not just mentally, emotionally, etherically, astrally, you're physically, you're bringing it in physical, you're adding that extra layer of power to it. And you're giving the energies around you a point in space and time in which to center.
Right.
Where if you're doing it energetically, it's just an energetic time.
Yeah. Well, and that
You
that
don't have any space.
it's like, even with me visualizing, me in that emptiness is what I call it, the
Mhm.
empty.
The
Uh,
void. Yeah.
yeah. When you're in the empty or the void, you're just in that nothingness.
Mhm.
Well, you haven't dedicated a physical space to it.
Right. There's no space.
Like the only space that you have created is your spiritual self. And though you can work in that space,
Yeah, absolutely.
it like once you actually put the physical with it, it changes it 100%. You
Right.
really feel that connection. Part of my research
Yeah.
also part of my research on this subject also stated like one of the reasons that you go through the physical motions is to also help you get there mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Right. Which is
That's
what
why it's
I
important.
consider that ritualistic mindset that you mentioned. That is
Yeah.
my definition.
Um, and that to me is really what the ritualistic mindset is. Because again, I know we can do this, without casting a circle. If you're practicing the craft, just thinking something can be enough of an intention to make it happen. You didn't
Yes.
have to cast a circle,
Right.
but you also threw it out there into the absolute open.
Right.
Uh, and
Just your
it's
thoughts
more of
can
like,
create. Just like your words can create.
yeah, you're willing it into existence, but how much harder did you have to will it into existence if you didn't go into that circle first?
Right. I kind of look at it like you can do the mental aspect of casting a circle and doing your spells and rituals and all that, right? Like you can do that. Sure. But to me, that's kind of like wishing to win the lottery, but never playing the lottery. where when you're physically casting that circle, now you've went and bought the ticket and you're actually in the game.
Yeah.
Like you made a physical difference in the world. Like you're doing some action.
It goes back to, the basics here.
Right.
The revisiting the basics episode. Um, if you're studying it, if you're thinking about it, you're still technically practicing, and it is a very technical and loose term that you are practicing in that.
Right.
But if you don't actually go through the motions, you're not putting it in, giving the practical application.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's definitely very, very important. And again, like the more you do it physically, the faster it is, the easier it is. Like, and it's like second nature. You get that muscle memory and the energy show up so much faster. You feel it so much faster. And the more you do it, and the more you work your spells and your rituals, things within that space, and you see tangible results. When you cast that circle and you step into that space mentally, emotionally, physically, all of it, magically, every bit of it, when you step into that space, you are already expecting this to happen and come true, because every time you go through this and you do it, you get better and better and stronger and stronger. And these things start happening, and they start happening faster and faster and faster. And part of that is your expectation that when you go through the physical moments of casting the circle and doing your spell work, you know it's done. When you do that, it's done. So you're already expecting it. And that expectation alone ups the game. It changes everything completely. It's the difference between working a charm and working a spell completely outside of a circle and hoping that it works. You're doing wish magic. You're wishing that this will work. You're hoping that this will work. But when you literally make it a ritual and you start to see this work and you feel this energy around you and you see the shifting starting to happen in your life, that changes everything. You're no longer doing wish magic. You're doing craft. You're doing the craft. You're making shit happen.
Okay, so again, solitary practitioner over here. Um, when you were talking about it, it gets easier. You do it's faster. It's stronger every time you do it.
Right.
Um, even with the way I have done for my pillar of light, it comes easier. It comes faster. I connect faster. I ground faster. I center faster. Every time I do it, it's just faster and faster and faster, to the point where it's reached, like, I don't even have to think about it. I know, like, I'm about to do something and it's like, I need to do this, and boom, there it is.
Right. Just having the intention alone creates it.
Right. So my again, my question at that point is because you've almost got me. You've almost got me. But do I really have to go through those physical motions, even though I feel that strong connection? And again, I said you've almost got me on this one, because I know the difference in power. I know the difference in the strength when it's, again, as I say, the ritualistic mindset. When you go through those physical motions, I I guess you could also get to the point where it's like, because some people use a finger to channel, a wand to channel, an athame to channel, and you know draw this circle, weave this circle, whatever it is, the way that you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it could be getting to a point to where it's as simple as point, spin real quick, and it's done.
I would
But
say, I will say, okay, there's one thing I want to touch on before I jump to that, because I wanted to mention group work, right? Because you
yes.
mentioned you felt that surge of energy when you did the group work.
Hmm.
And that is what happens when you get all those people together, because you're bringing in that much more power and energy. Um, and it's strong. And I think that's valid, but I also feel like sometimes because you're relying on other people, the energy is sometimes not as focused because you don't know that people are as focused or as much in the ritual mindset as you.
I agree with that 100%.
So while you may be putting a lot out, this person may be putting less out. So they're pulling some of yours to help balance that out. And so group work can be amazing, but it can sometimes feel almost less powerful or less connected just because of that, of the unknown, of the other people around and what they are contributing.
Oh yeah, I've experienced that side of things too.
Yeah. So I think it's really important for people that are thinking about practicing in a group setting, know the people, um, really know the people. Like
Yes.
before you go mixing and mingling energies and opening yourself up to that, you need to make sure that the people are really on the same page as you, that they're as serious as you. You need to know what their intentions are, where they're coming from, how practiced are they, how serious are they. I mean, somebody might not be as practiced, and that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be involved if they're very serious about it and they're very committed and have the intention of really contributing their all to that setting. So I don't think it's as much about experience as it is the intent and the and just as and taking it serious. It is very serious. The energies you're calling on and asking help from and petitioning to, they're not there to play. Like you don't call up this energy just because. Like you don't call up the energy just to fool around and try it out and see if it's cool. That's like playing with the Ouija board irresponsibly and then wondering why you have a demon in your house.
Yeah,
Like you just don't do it. Like
that's a great example. Uh,
yes. So like if you're going to practice in the group setting, then yeah. Same thing if you're going to practice doing a circle by yourself. Like the first time you go through the motions, I would probably call on whatever source, spirit, being, entity it is that you connect with and invite them into your circle. Um, and, after you've really cleared the space, you've protected the space, from there, you can maybe work with the elements, the elementals, those old, um, well established energies that really don't have a trickster side to them, right? Before you just go calling in whoever and whatever. It's very much like you don't want that Ouija board experience. So I would just say be careful with that. Like, don't be like, hey, I'm in this safe space. Why don't we call on Loki and see what happens? Like,
because that's a bad idea.
right. That's probably not the way you want to go. So I just want to throw that out there. Um, the other thing I wanted to say was I know Pam and I and Rooster did a ritual. And I cast the circle, doing my circle that I've done. And you could feel everything, right? So you don't have to use somebody else's. It doesn't have to be that old traditional method of casting a circle. I completely made mine up. I pulled from many different sources. I even pulled from movies and songs that I thought were really cool, that just spoke to me in that magical way, that made me feel magical, that made me feel witchy. And that's the other point, right? Like you can only feel so witchy in your mind. But when you start breaking out candles and incense and herbs and like crystals, like you just get in a whole vibe. It just it creates a whole vibe, and that contributes to that ritualistic mindset, right? So when I started with the intention of I'm going to write my own way of casting the circle. Once I understood the intention of the circle, what it was for, and kind of the structures for it, I went about writing my own. And but it works. It was so powerful. Like when I called on the air element, the wind kicked up instantly. Like, and it just started blowing. And Pam was like, because she could feel it just come out of nowhere. And then when I got done with everything and I sat down, we were sitting at a table outside working. And when I sat down at the table, she was like, I literally feel like a million things staring at us right now. And I was like, yeah, that's all the stuff I called in. That's what I work with. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. It was awesome. And she felt it, right? Like, and that was the thing that was, I feel like it just really confirmed for me, and it still does, that you can write your own, make your own, as long as you stay committed, you stay serious, because it is a serious thing.
Yes.
You know, and you keep that intention. And I'll say when I did the circle that the clan of Boskedden does, the traditional one for the first time, I had that same experience, but it was intensified, right? Like I still felt the wind come when I called, but it was extra. It was like there was, I don't know, there was just an extra hinge to it. Like you could feel there was just so much more power to it. And then I was shocked when I called in a certain energy that is called in when doing this, because it's the energies that they work with. And they started talking to me. Then they were just showed up and they're like, yeah, what's up? You called? And I'm like, oh shit, I just called that in. Like that's a pretty powerful being that I did not even know I wasn't fully aware of who I was calling in when I called them in. And like I thought I was calling in something else. They're very close, but they're very different. But she had a lot to say, and she had a lot of information to offer, and that was super cool. And she's still around. Like even though I did clear, I opened. But she stays around. She hovers. I think she's watching me, waiting to see what's going to happen next. But definitely, I would say practice, and sit with the energies and just see, because like I said, sometimes you just get a whole lot of information, a super cool experience, and that's enough. Like you don't even have to do a ritual. You don't even have to do the spell work. Okay, now to the point of the question that you asked. Okay. I would say when you have practiced enough, and I mean a lot, I mean like years. If you're not one of those that is practicing doing your circle once a week, or at least twice a month with the moon phases or something, like, many years. Okay. Like you need to be really practiced with it, and very experienced with the energies. And I'm not to this level, but I have worked with people who are. And so that's where my response is coming from. When you have done it so many times of physically casting that circle, you don't need this or this or this. You don't need these. No, you don't. But it's still not all done here. You're still doing the physical working, but you can do it all from here without having to go through the motions, but you still have the intent of setting that physical boundary and physically calling in everything so that you can physically do what it is you need to do.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Um, it actually makes me think about the fact of the whole body is a tool.
Yes.
I have said time and time again, I am a tool for the divine source energy. Um, I do not believe myself as the one that is actually creating this energy. I am just the tool that allows it to be directed in the way that I want it to go. Um, and then thinking about, as I said before, using a finger to point and draw, or a
It's a
line.
great option. It really is. It's a great option until you can go through the process enough to be adept enough and confident enough to be able to do that physically without physically going through the motions.
Well, there's another physical aspect that we don't really think about in some cases, which could actually just be another stepping stone to being able to do it without having to actually go through those physical steps. And I may actually discuss that with you in person before I throw it out there.
Okay.
But it just remind me, and I'll let you know what my idea is on that one and see what you think. Um, but again, just remember the whole body is a tool. Um, so I see we're kind of pushing our time here.
We are.
Um,
Did I sell you on the circle there? You said I was close. Did that last little bit tip you over the edge?
my cup is full. It's not brimming over. It is a lot to think about. It is a lot to process. Um, and again, I think about everything. So it'll take me time to process everything just for the simple fact of how many different points of view I'm going to look at this from.
Right.
But
The air is
yeah, I'm probably going to start casting a circle for pretty much everything now. Um and not just that, but I'm going to go through the creation of my own circle first and do exactly what I said and, practice it. I've done it before, but that was before my hiatus and now it's like I'm back.
right.
I don't even remember what I did before. So
Right. Yes. I will throw this out there, just a little fun tidbit. So the one that I created, I actually took some of the lines out of the movie Willow
yeah.
when I made mine. But I tell you what, that shit's strong. It's still powerful. So, but yes, that was
I
one of my
almost feel
inspirations.
almost feel like we could do a part 2 on this and
I know, I do too, actually, but we might. If we come up with enough questions or things, topics to touch on, we definitely could.
hi, I'm Adam. I come up with questions.
Right. So possibly a part two, especially if people send in questions.
Yeah, for
We can
sure.
definitely revisit.
I could definitely talk about this again.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a fun one.
Uh, oh, I do want to say, I don't think we touched as much as I would like to, so I may ask this in person. And if anybody wants to know, uh, like what kind of answers I got, feel free to reach out. We'll get you those answers. Um, but I don't feel like we really touched a whole lot on my way of doing things. That pillar of light. I know, like to an extent, yes, we did, but we definitely talked more on the physical aspect of drawing the circle. So, is my pillar a circle?
I would say in the energetic, etheric, astral realms, yes. In the physical aspect, I would say definitely not. Um, And I feel like there is an added layer of strength when you bring in that physical. Also, when you bring in the physical, I'm going to hope that it's safe to say, because I think I've read this in other places as well. Really don't want to get in trouble. But I think it would be safe to say when you're doing it in the physical, you're also bringing in the elemental side of things too. And so that's going to add a whole nother layer of energy and strength and support to what you're doing when you bring in the different elements as well, which is something that is hard to do when it's all here and you rely solely on just energy, on just the spirit aspect of that pentacle.
All right, I'm sold. We're gonna start doing a circle every time now.
Yeah.
It just to me it makes a lot more sense to not leave. Don't leave it up to chance,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Um,
Like if you're going to take the time and it really means a lot to you, what you're doing, do it all the way. Like go all
yeah,
in. Bring in all the energy, bring in all the support, bring in everything you can to make it happen, because that's going to show how passionate you truly are. And it's going to enforce that will, enforce that intent. And when you, I mean, we haven't even touched on anything close to the witch's pyramid yet, but when you look at all the different sides of the witch's pyramid, all of these are also incorporated when you are doing a circle. And so it reinforces every aspect of that as well, that you don't get when you're just doing it all here. Or even when you're just doing it all physically, not within that circle. It's harder to bring all those aspects in. So it's kind of like if you're just doing it in the energetic and you think about that, like what I just said, and you think about the pentacle, right? And it is the four elements plus the fifth element, which is spirit, right? Which we think about as coming in from the top. It's the top of the pentacle. So when you're doing it here and you're sitting in the middle of that pentacle, you're just pulling from the top. You're not pulling in from all the other sides to reinforce and create that ball of energy to send out to make that huge shockwave through not just the etheric, astral, spiritual, mental, emotional. You want to impact that physical realm as well, because most of the time we're looking for some kind of physical change in our reality. So definitely taking it to the physical level is what's going to make the difference, I feel like. And I definitely can say in my history, I feel like that's also the thing that I've been missing, because I was not as serious or sold on the magical circle either as a solitary practitioner. So I would say it's definitely been the thing that's made the difference. And I would say when you're learning and you're serious about getting committed to this path, practice as much as you can. Even if there's no intent to do spell work, practice as much as you can. That's something I've learned. And like if I want to do a ritual for me, if it's just something that I'm working on for me, I still use my circle. I know it better. I know it's second nature for me. I connect with it more. I still use mine. But when I know there are Boscanan workings going on across the globe, and I'm meant to be a part of those, and that my energy will be sought after when in that circle, then yes, I do that Boscanan one, so that I can be a part of their energies that they're putting out across the globe. And that's, at the holidays, essentially. Full moons are reserved for something entirely different, and that I cannot go into at all. But the holidays, yes, those are when they are working clan circles, and that's one that I will definitely do it then. But outside of that, I use my own. So I would say use your own until you get it down to that it's just automatic. And see if that isn't the thing that makes the whole difference.
Yeah, processing everything. I've
Yeah.
already like I'm not going to repeat myself on this one. It's just I know where I'm at now. So,
Right. Well,
and
and again, like if you're gonna do, say, like a reading, you're working on some divination stuff, things like that. Would it be great if you can go through that process? Absolutely. Um, but if the only thing you can do at the moment is the pillar and putting that circle around you, do that. At least doing that when you're going to do any kind of divination, I think is going to be a game changer within itself. Just doing that alone.
oh yeah,
But I would say if you're wanting to do kind of any kind of divination at the full moon when it's like a good time or the dark moon, um, if you can do it within that physical circle, I think you'll have an entirely different experience. So I'll just throw that out there.
things things to try now.
Yes.
Things to try. Right. Well, we we're there.
Yeah, we touched on a lot, and I definitely have a lot of things that we should definitely talk about coming up soon. So everybody stay tuned for that. We have to figure out exactly what subjects first, but then hopefully we can get a list down to give you guys kind of an idea of where we're headed next in the future. So
Oh, if you don't have a pen and paper right beside you right now, I would be surprised. But yeah, if you don't get it written down, I'll write it down.
All right, you guys. So we hope you have enjoyed this a little over an hour with us, which is fun because this has been a good one. Yeah, we hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, again, you can reach us within the Facebook group, The Witch Source Society. You can always email me with any kind of questions, comments, anything, thoughts at thewitchsource@gmail.com. And if you are in the Winston-Salem, North Carolina triad area, come check us out at the shop. We are at 1622 South Hawthorne Road, Suite 7. That is in Winston-Salem, 27103. Throwing that out there. You guys can come say hi. But yeah, other than that, Adam, any final things to throw out?
Not really. But cast your circles, people.
Yes. Yeah, love it. All right, you guys, until next time, stay magical.